Yes, good morning everyone. Okay, so 27th June 2022. So before starting the session, we will discuss one quotation by Aristotle. So as now the mains examination is going to happen, so some of the students may be writing mains examination. So there will be quotation based questions in ethics paper. GS 4 part. Along with that, there are, let's say, captions and quotation based essay topics being asked in UPSC examination. So briefly we will discuss some important quotations by the leaders, philosophers and the personalities, noted personalities in India and the world. So educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So Aristotle, who is very important Greek philosopher. So when we learn about normative ethics, we learn about Aristotelian, we can say virtue ethics, and some important quotations are very relevant to our examination here. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So by this quote, he is talking about that education should include both, that is educating the mind and educating the heart. So basically it talks about knowledge. When we say educating the mind means imparting knowledge. When we say educating heart means imparting good values. Okay, so knowledge or skills, educating the mind. So when we say that educating the mind without educating the heart, when let's say people are receiving the education only in terms of knowledge and skills and not in terms of values, this is going to be the harmful. The person who has knowledge and skills and lacks the appropriate values and attitude, or we can say have weak character, then that can be harmful to the society. That person can be a terrorist, that person can involve in a, let's say, corruption, that because that person is very smart, let's say it can find loopholes in the laws, rules and regulations of the government, and that person can use that knowledge against the society, okay, or in antisocial activities. So that's why it is harmful. You should give some examples, like several scientists, they are involved in the, let's say, development of those technologies and application of those technologies against the society, or we can say against the peace and for violent purposes. You can give those examples. And yes, you can also talk about relevance to civil services or civil servants who are having the appropriate aptitude but lack appropriate attitude or values. So those civil servants may involve into the corruption and wrong practices. So that's why it is relevant to civil services also. Okay, so in this manner we should describe this particular statement, quotation with appropriate examples if suppose it is asked in the GS 4 paper. Fine. Okay, now let us come back to the today's session. And yes, these are the important articles. Look at the first page. The important development on bottom side, China upgraded firepower on LAC. Okay, line of actual control. So in 2020 the standoff happened between India and China, and yes, before that event in June 2020 there was to some extent tranquility along the border, and both countries had some kind of understanding that they will not violate the agreements, boundary agreements between these two countries. But thereafter the conflict happened, and let's say the situation is not same now like earlier. Okay, so the intelligence report suggests that the China has increased its infrastructure and manpower along with upgraded arms and weapons within the 100 kilometers of LAC on its side. So you should know that such kind of developments are happening, and the de-escalation has not completed yet. So the border issue is continuously, we can say, in news. We are having follow-up since last 2 years regarding this, and this is the new development. Now Russia strikes Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, as G7 summit opens. So now the capital has been targeted by the Russia, the missiles, they have targeted the civilian buildings in the capital of Ukraine. So this is the new development and major development that is happening. So you should be having follow up on this Ukraine-Russia war from time to time. Come to page number 7 directly. On bottom side, reviving the cultivation of traditional crop in Mysuru. Okay, the name of the traditional crop is Amaranthus. Okay, Amaranthus is leafy vegetable, group of leafy vegetables, and this is going having some nutritional value also. It is being revived by the farmers in Mysuru. Now, last year there was one question in prelims examination talking about Gucci mushroom found in Himalayas, having some nutritional value. So here onwards you should keep in mind that UPSC will ask some of the local varieties of plants or vegetables, or let's say fungus, mushrooms, anything that is having nutritional value, and they are very significant. Okay, so from miscellaneous perspective, now we should gather such kind of information from newspaper. Okay, Amaranthus, local, let's say, leafy vegetable from Mysuru is being promoted here. Now, moving on page number 8, editorial page, all these articles largely they are not that much relevant to our examination, but on page number 9, how Hanoi and New Delhi are fortifying defense ties. Okay, Hanoi is the capital of Vietnam, so it is talking about India-Vietnam relations, how they have progressed in recent past, as our defense minister recently visited Vietnam and both countries signed Vietnam-India Defense Partnership 2030. With that context, this article is written. We can expect that question, India-Vietnam relation. This year's prelims examination, they ask question on Vietnam specifically, its growth story and all. Okay, so we can expect such question in mains examination also, if they are asking some specific question on a country in Southeast Asia. So here onwards you should keep in mind that there can be bilateral relations question in India and Southeast Asian country. So India-Vietnam relations, we will take input GS2 paper IR section. Now moving on page number 10, Indian laws on abortion. Quickly we will revise the Indian laws on abortion. What is this Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, which was last year amended in 2021. What are these amendments? What were the earlier provisions? What are the new provisions? Along with that, let's say the context of this article is US Supreme Court has recently banned the abortion and reversed the earlier verdict in 1973. So these are the major developments as it is being considered as regressive move. वो जो एक editorial है page number 8 पे, वो इसी context से है. Okay, with that context only that editorial is written. So this can be asked in both prelims as well as mains examination, social justice part, governance part. Okay. Now moving on. Yes, come to page number 14 directly. See, from July 1st, Himachal to buy back single-use plastic. So this is one case study. You can mention how different states are working out the measures for environment protection, and here for single-use plastic recycling will be done through, let's say, collection by the school children. वहाँ पे कुछ incentives देने वाले हैं. 1 kg of single-use plastic items collected by student, they will be provided 75 rupees, and that will be collected at school itself. So yes, it is good development because it will let's say create some kind of awareness among the children also, that such single-use plastic is not good for environment. You can mention this in your essay paper or GS3 paper environment section. One more important measure is being taken in Odisha to install siren to caution elephant movement in forest. Okay, so this can be also used whenever we talk about man-animal conflict and the animals dying in the accidents, train accidents, road accidents. So Odisha is one of the major, let's say, country having number of Indian elephants, and they cross let's say railway lines and the highways. Now the Odisha government is going to install a siren system which will detect the movement of elephants to cross national highways. They will use the infrared radiations, and they will detect according to the size and other features of elephants, and that will blow the siren on both sides of national highway, and that will create some kind of warning system aware, it will make the citizens aware. So this is going to reduce the accidents here. So it is good development, you can mention this in your answer. Now on page number 15, okay, so on page number 14, one more development, center asks firms to arrange tricolor. Okay, so government to start Har Ghar Tiranga drive as a part of celebrations of Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav 75th Independence Day. So these steps are being undertaken. On page number 15, G7 proposes $600 billion global infra plan to rival China. Okay. So the name of the project, the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. This is unveiled recently at G7 summit, and this is going to be the let's say counter project by G7 countries against China's Belt and Road Initiative BRI. On top side, Iran launches rocket into space ahead of nuclear talks. The name of the rocket is Juljuna rocket, named after the horse of Imam Hussein, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad. Okay, so from international relations, international developments perspective, you should be knowing these developments. Okay, let us discuss now in detail. First, Indian laws on abortion. Okay, so you should know that there are some provisions in IPC which ban abortion in India, and it provides for imprisonment also and some fine that can range of 3 years to 10 years. Okay, so forceful abortion without consent of the women, such kind of provisions are mentioned in IPC, and yes, to ensure that some bona fide, the abortion is to be done for some bona fide reasons, some exceptions needed to be given to these provisions for abortion purpose, and these exceptions are added in Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act of 1971. Now this act provided for, let's say, abortion in certain cases which, let's say, which result into the the impact on physical and mental health of the women. There can be abnormalities of the children, there can be, let's say, the accidental pregnancy due to, let's say, sexual abuse, and we can say rape cases. So in those cases the exceptions needed to be provided, and that's why MTP Act was enacted. How has the MTP Act evolved from 1971 to 2021? Okay, so evolution, you should know here that from time to time the amendments have been done, and the latest amendments are of 2021. Okay, the bill was introduced and enacted in 2020, it was started implementation in last year 2021. And what are the provisions of this Amendment Act? You should know that earlier only married women were allowed abortion. Now unmarried, or we can say single women, are also allowed abortion, because earlier the consent of husband was required, husband or partner was required. Now such consent is not required through new amendments. Now earlier, let's say, for abortion up to 12 weeks of pregnancy, one medical practitioner, and up to 20 weeks of pregnancy, two medical practitioners view was required for abortion. Now this is changed to respectively 20 weeks and 24 weeks. So that means the abortion can be done up to 24 weeks on the advice of or from the opinion of two medical practitioners. Beyond this also, let's say the abortion can be done beyond 24 weeks through medical board opinion, which will consist of 4 members, experts, and this medical board will be constituted at state level. These are the important provisions you should know through this amendment. These changes have been done to the earlier act. Okay. Now, what are the criticisms against the abortion law in India? Yes, one of the criticism is that there is no, let's say, voluntary provision for abortion. Okay, so that means the fundamental right of women for bodily integrity or right over own body. So the women itself needed to take decision here. The opinion of the medical practitioner and all this is required. So this is also then because of, let's say, legal provisions, and every time the opinion is required, there is, let's say, illegal practices going on for abortion in the country. It is said that in 1 year around more than 8 lakh abortions are done, and several let's say result into death of the women because of such illegal practices of abortion in the country. Also we know that the sex selective let's say practices here, the female feticide or child feticide that happens because of the patriarchal social norms that we have in the country. All these are, let's say, relevant aspect here. In terms of criticism, these criticisms can be mentioned here. Now moving on, how Hanoi and the New Delhi are fortifying defense ties. We are talking about India-Vietnam relations here. The context is recently our defense minister visited Vietnam. Defense minister visited Vietnam and there was signing of joint vision statement on India-Vietnam Defense Partnership 2030. Also, two countries signed memorandum of understanding on mutual logistics support. India is the first country, let's say, with which Vietnam has signed such kind of logistic support agreement. This is good development. Now, excuse me. Okay, so what are the common points, and we can say especially for India to have good developments or good relations with Vietnam. India's Act East policy is there, then maritime multilateralism, maritime security outreach is there, the building of stronger network across the Indo-Pacific. This has led to strengthening of, let's say, India-Vietnam relations. Now, if you talk about specifically defense relations, how they have improved. So, it started all with defense protocol of 2000 we can say, and thereafter the defense requirements of Vietnam. From time to time, India has exported several defense requirements of Vietnam. Recently, you should talk about BrahMos. Vietnam has agreed to buy BrahMos cruise missile from India. Then Navy to Navy cooperation between two countries. Navy to Navy cooperation between two countries. This is also being very important, especially in terms of naval information exchange between two countries. Now in terms of analysis, you should be doing analysis that why these developments are important for India. Okay, first thing you should know that the Strait of Malacca and South China Sea, Indian Ocean, they are very important maritime trade route. Securing this maritime trade route is of India's interest, first thing. Second thing you should talk about is the energy resources, energy and biological resources of South China Sea. And Vietnam is having its EEZ in South China Sea. Huge EEZ is there for Vietnam. Third thing, you should know that Chinese aggressions in South China Sea, this has been from time to time criticized by Vietnam, and India support Vietnam and its claim in South China Sea. Okay, so you should know this aspect also. Then along with that, India is having its economic interests in South China Sea. इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट जो है इसमें आप लिख सकते ONGC विदेश is having exploration, oil and gas exploration in Vietnam's EEZ, exclusive economic zone. So this project is continued despite the warning by China. Strategic aspect you can mention here like asymmetric warfare. For asymmetric warfare, it is very important that India has some kind of presence in South China Sea, because China's let's say ingressions into LAC along the land border are increasing. So what happened after 2020 conflict between India China along LAC, India immediately sent warships in South China Sea as a part of asymmetric warfare to have deterrence over China. Okay, so such kind of let's say strategic aspects are very important. You should talk about all these 5 points whenever we have India and any Southeast Asian countries relations in South China Sea especially. Okay, so IR section GS2 paper. Then China upgraded firepower along the LAC. So they have increased their infrastructure within the 100 kilometer of line of actual control in western sector, long range artillery, rocket system, upgraded air defense system, expanded runways, hardened blast panes to house fighter aircraft. These are some of the major upgrades undertaken by Chinese army on its side in the past 2 years. So according to intelligence inputs. Along with that, they have set up captive solar energy and small hydel power projects all along LAC. This enhances their winter sustenance capability. Apart from this, the model villages are being set up along the LAC. ये सारी चीज़ें आपको पता होनी चाहिए GS2 पेपर IR, GS3 पेपर सिक्योरिटी पार्ट. Then G7 proposes 600 billion global infrastructure plan to rival China. The name of the project, the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. The Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. हर बार US एक नया प्लान लेके आता है to counter BRI of China Belt and Road Initiative for let's say funding the infrastructure projects. But there is some difference here from BRI and this project. BRI is a state funded project. Chinese government itself is funding the infrastructure project. But here in this project, the private companies, okay, so unlike China's state-run BRI, the proposed G7 funding would be depending on largely private companies willing to commit massive investment, and therefore it is not guaranteed. Okay, it is not guaranteed funding. So this is the difference. Earlier you should know that to counter BRI, the US had launched Blue Dot Network and Build Back Better World, B3W. These are also related to infrastructure funding and infrastructure, let's say, projects ranking. They are giving some kind of quality grading to these projects. Okay, but they have not been largely successful. They have not been largely successful. This is now the new initiative. Along with that, there is IPEF also. You should know this. In Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, recently launched in Tokyo, Japan by US. So 13 countries are participating in negotiations for this also. ये सारे डेवलपमेंट्स आपको पता होने चाहिए. You should use this in your answer in mains examination, GS2 paper, IR section, and along with that it is relevant to prelims examination. Iran launches rocket into space ahead of nuclear talks. It is a solid fuel rocket, and earlier also it had attempted but failed to launch such kind of rockets. So the name of the rocket is Juljana. Okay, Juljana rocket, named after horse of Imam Hussein, the grandson of Prophet Muhammad. It was not immediately clear whether Iran successfully launched satellite carrier into the intended orbit. Just remember the name, it is the rocket by Iran. Okay. Reviving cultivation of traditional crop in Mysuru. The name of the traditional crop is Amaranthus. It refers to wide variety of leafy vegetables including Kirkiri Soppu and Dantina Soppu. Okay, local varieties, local names are there, but as a part of mixed cropping among the farmers in Mysuru, these variety of leafy vegetables is being promoted, and they are nutritious also. Okay, economic benefits are there. So this can be asked in the prelims examination from environment section also, right? So remember the name Amaranthus, leafy vegetable. Now, what should be answer to this question? So partnership for global infrastructure and investment was recently launched by which of the following? So yes, G7, just now we talked about this. So G7 countries, they have launched this $600 billion project as to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. So G7 is the correct answer. If you don't know exactly, then it is going to be the problem. Because see, global infrastructure and investment can be World Economic Forum or OECD or G20 also. That's why we have framed such options also. Okay. So answer is C here in this case. Fine. Any question? Okay, let us stop there. Fine.
Welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Study General Studies with Lukmaan IAS for building comprehensive knowledge. GS paper 2 and 4 will be taken by S. Ansari and other papers will be covered by renowned faculties. Live classes are as effective as offline classes. The classes are highly interactive in nature. Your doubts and queries will be addressed and there will be dictation of notes. In the last 10 years, Lukmaan IAS has set up a niche in the field of UPSC guidance.